Story 3: Midnight Mass and the Christmas Bells. We return again to our little coal mining town and a snowy Christmas Eve in the 1950s. For Adam, it would be his first Christmas as an altar boy. Along with several of his friends, he was selected to participate at Midnight Mass. For us as adults, this would be seen as something good, an honor. But for Adam and his friend Thomas, there was a serious question to be faced.
Our parents had always told us that we had to be in bed or asleep, or Santa Claus wouldn't stop at our house. So would Santa come if we weren't at home and asleep? For 6- and 7-year-olds, this was a most difficult and perplexing question.
It certainly was, Adam. We knew Santa would come in the middle of the night, but instead of being in bed, we would be at church.
So the question in our young minds was very simple. We knew that being at church was a good thing, but did that violate Santa's law that we had to be in bed and asleep?
And will we still get our presents?
Dad took me to the church at 11 o'clock. The altar boys had to be there early to prepare. We had been rehearsing for 2 weeks for the very special midnight service. Before leaving, I took the pillows and put them under the blankets on my bed, so it would look like I was asleep, just in case Santa was checking. I also told my little brother Matthew that if Santa did discover my decoy, he should tell him that it was because I had to go to church and didn't want Santa to think that I was up to some mischief. But when I got to the church, it was already a beehive of activity. Because Midnight Mass was so special, there were going to be 12 altar boys there. 4 would be at the altar, 2 would handle the incense, and the rest of us, the 6 youngest, would be the Candlebearers, holding long poles with large brass candle holders on the top.
As soon as Adam arrived, we put on our bright red cassocks, buttoning up the front with the long robes. Then the white surplice went on top of it. With his puffy white sleeves, we felt like angels.
We were feeling pretty special, but then came the collar and the bow. You often see images of altar and choir children with the same outfit, and the big white starched collar around their neck, and a large red bow with streamers that look like 2 neckties.
While we looked very Christmassy, they were the most annoying things to ever wear. You couldn't move your head, they chafed constantly, and they always felt 2 sizes too small.
But we were ready. Now there was nothing to do but wait until midnight and hope Santa would still visit our homes and leave us presents.
The 6 Candlebearers, the youngest of the group, kept to the side and we talked in whispers, trying to avoid any behavior that might be problematic for Santa. One of the older altar boys, Eddie, told us not to worry. Santa wouldn't forget us. Jimmy, the youngest of the group, said that we should listen for sleigh bells, as that would be proof that Santa would come through town.
At 5 minutes to midnight, Father Ben gave the order to line up. We took our spots and, with the bells ringing, the organ playing, and the choir singing, "O Come All Ye Faithful," the procession began. It was a small church in a small community, and as we walked down the aisle, the faces of our families and neighbors smiled on us.
For the Candlebearers, the first part of Mass was pretty easy. We stood on the side during the sermon, scrunched together to fit in a long, low bench on the side of the sanctuary. While we were reverent and attentive, as expected, but with one ear you kept listening for those sleigh bells.
Then, Mass reached the offertory. At that point, the Candlebearers left the altar and entered the sanctuary. We quickly grabbed the long wooden poles with the brass candle holders at the top. The candles were lit, and Eddie, who was one of the senior boys coordinating the operation, reminded us to move slowly and carefully so we wouldn't extinguish the flame.
We came back into the sanctuary. A soft red carpet ran down the center and led us to the altar, but we had to kneel on either side of the hard wooden floor, 3 of us on each side.
I was across from Tommy in the last row. Our duty was to kneel through the end of the service holding the candles. The wooden staff of the holders rested on the floor, and with our outstretched arms, we steadied the candles, which reached about a foot above our head. In the semi-darkness, it was a beautiful sight, with only the lights of the Christmas trees, the candles on the altar, and our 6 candles lighting the sanctuary.
There we knelt with our candles, occasionally exchanging glances to be sure we were all okay. Try kneeling on a hard wooden floor for 30 minutes and you'll understand why.
We were very focused on our duties, and as this was the latest any of us Candlebearers had ever been up, just trying to stay awake. Amidst the beauty of the service, the joyous music of the choir, and the many details to attend to, all thoughts of Santa disappeared from our mind. And then it happened.
We're almost at the end of the service. The priest and the entire congregation were seated in a moment of quiet contemplation. We Candlebearers, however, remained kneeling at our station. Suddenly, off in the distance, we can hear a very faint, soft ringing of sleigh bells. Adam and I exchanged a quick glance and noticed 4 Candlebearers in front of us doing the same thing.
The bells grew steadily closer and our eyes grew big as saucers. But we had to maintain our focus on the service. I could see Jimmy straining hard to hear, trying not to move. The bells were not loud, but more a very clear and noticeable background sound. We heard them off to the right of the altar, through the open doorway that led to a part of the sanctuary where there was a window and a seldom-used door to the back lawn. The bells kept coming closer and seemed to be rising up in the air, as if they were going to fly over the top of the church.
Just then, the organ came in the ending and the meditation and drowning out the sleigh bells. Father Ben got up and walked up to the altar on cue. We Candlebearers rose up to the floor. After the blessing, we proceeded to go up to the sounds of Joy to the World, and our candles held high in front of us.
As soon as we got into the sanctuary, we hurriedly put the candles away and bolted to the far side to look out the window where we heard the bells. Outside, there was nothing. The snow covering the back lawn showed no sign of person, sleigh, or reindeer.
When we turned back, Father Ben and Eddie were behind us. They could see our puzzled faces, though. Father Ben just smiled at us and said Christmas was the time to believe.
As we hung up our vestments and bundled up in our winter coats to meet up with our parents and head home, Eddie came by with a smile on his face. He said, "Merry Christmas. You guys did great for your first midnight mass." Then, as he turned to go, he added, "Don't worry, Santa remembered you. To Santa, altar servers are special."
If you ask Adam, Tommy, or Jimmy what presents Santa brought them that year, they won't remember. But if you ask them about a 12-year-old altar boy named Eddie, a kind old priest, and sleigh bells at midnight mass, their faces still light up as they did over half a century ago in that little church. Yes, Father Ben was right. Christmas is a time to believe.